They told me the night shift would be easy. All cameras, no contact, said the supervisor. Just walk the floor once an hour, report any broken glass, and stay away from the old wing. The job came with free coffee, a warm break room, and a decent paycheck. After months of unemployment, I couldn't say no. So I took it. Graveyard shift at Silverline Mall. What they didn't tell me was that no one had lasted more than a week. The first night was calm, too calm. From the control room on the second floor, I had access to all 27 camera feeds. Most showed empty corridors, dark storefronts, and that creepy indoor fountain with fake ivy clinging to chipped marble. Half the stores were shut down permanently. Just a pharmacy, a donut kiosk, and a 24-hour gym remained open. The place smelled like old tile and lemon cleaner. It felt abandoned, and yet the air had weight, like someone was always watching. At 1:03 a.m., I did my first walk, flashlight in hand, radio on hip, keys jangling from my belt. I passed shuttered clothing stores with mannequins frozen in silent poses, too many of them. Some stores had more mannequins than seemed necessary. One had its glass cracked just slightly, like someone had tried to break out. By 2 a.m., I started hearing it, clicking, like heels on tile. Quick, deliberate, pacing behind me. But every time I turned, there was nothing. No echo. No intruder. Just silence. At 2:41 a.m., I checked the camera feeds again. Camera 14, food court corner, was flickering. The display glitched, turned black, then snapped back on. And the chairs had moved. At least 8 of them. All turned toward the security camera. I rewound the feed, confused. But the motion recording was blank. Nothing had triggered the sensor. I thought it might be a prank. Some leftover mall rat pulling a fast one. So I walked down to the food court. Empty as expected. Chairs where they should be. I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But then I noticed a trail of small, wet footprints leading toward the back hallway. Bare feet. Child-sized. And there were no children in the mall. I followed the prints to the fire exit, but the door hadn't been opened. The alarm was still armed, and the footprints stopped right at the doorframe, as if whoever made them had vanished into the wall. When I returned to the security office, camera 7, focused on the old toy store, was out. Just a black screen. Then a white flicker. Then static. Then, for one brief second, a face. A child's face. Mouth wide open, pressed against the camera lens from the inside. The toy store had been sealed shut since 2016, after a fire took out most of that wing. No one had entered it since. The windows were boarded. The ceiling collapsed. And yet, I saw someone in there. Smiling. Frozen. Looking straight at me. That was my first night. I didn't quit. I wish I had. Because the next night, she spoke through the intercom. The intercom system wasn't supposed to work. That's what Ben, the technician, told me during orientation. Power's disconnected from the central PA. We switched to radios years ago, he'd said. No one's used the intercom since the old wing fire. So when I heard it crackle to life at 3:12 a.m., I nearly dropped my coffee. I had just finished my second patrol. Everything seemed quiet, almost too quiet. The lights in the pharmacy flickered now and then, but that was normal, I'd been told. It was old wiring, nothing to panic about. But the intercom wasn't supposed to buzz. It definitely wasn't supposed to speak. It's closing time, Arman. Let me out. The voice was female. Calm. almost polite, but something about it made my skin crawl. I stared at the wall speaker above the office door like it might grow legs. I didn't move. I didn't answer. Then the static returned, followed by a second voice. A whisper. Closer. Wet. You heard her. She's waiting. I ripped a breaker to the intercom. Silence. But when I turned to the monitor bank, camera 12, escalators, was dark. And in the moment it flickered back to life, I saw a figure descending the stopped escalator, even though there was no power to that part of the mall. She wore a dress, old-fashioned, dust-colored, sleeves torn at the shoulder, and as the camera focused, I realized her feet weren't touching the steps. They hovered, just barely. She looked up, straight at the camera, and smiled. I grabbed the map on the desk. Camera 12 pointed to the top of the old wing, a place I had been explicitly told never to enter. The old toy store. The burned section. Unit B12. I zoomed in. The doors were cracked open, but those doors had been locked. Welded shut, I was told, after the fire took out 2 shops and the manager who'd gone in to rescue a lost child. I don't remember standing. Don't remember walking to the corridor. I just remember my flashlight flickering and the sudden change in temperature. It dropped 20 degrees as I neared the old wing. The tiles became grimier. The air smelled of melted plastic and rust. Most of the lights were out entirely, and a thick black shadow clung to the ceiling like mildew. I turned the corner, and the toy store door was wide open. Inside, everything was wrong. Shelves still stood, but all the toys were facing backward. Dolls, robots, puzzles, even a rocking horse that creaked with each slow sway. No wind, no reason. A single security light blinked in the center of the room, and beneath it, a child's mannequin. Not plastic, not fiberglass, porcelain. Hairline cracks covered its pale face. One glass eye missing, the mouth wide open. Inside the mouth, I saw something moving. I stepped back, heart racing. It's closing time. The voice came from behind the counter. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back, the mannequin was gone, but the eye remained, lying on the floor, staring up at me. I don't remember getting back to the office, but when I checked the camera feed for the toy store, there was no footage. Just static. Just the same screen that would return every night, at 3:12 a.m. without fail. I tried to quit the next morning. I told Ben. I told the mall supervisor. I told myself. But the moment I stepped outside Silverline service entrance, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You still have 4 shifts left. Leaving early means she follows you home. I stood frozen in the parking lot, heart pounding. I never gave them my number. I never told them what I saw. And yet someone knew. Someone who understood this place far better than I did. I turned back toward the mall. The clouds hung low. The walls seemed taller. And I realized, in a way I couldn't explain, that this place had claimed me. And I hadn't even signed a contract. That night, I didn't drink the coffee. I didn't trust anything anymore. I sat in the security office with every monitor on and the lights cranked up full. At 12:17 a.m., camera 9, the corridor outside the old bridal boutique, showed a mannequin in the center of the hallway. There shouldn't have been any. The boutique had been cleared out over a year ago. But the mannequin stood there anyway, dressed in a decaying white gown. The veil was torn. The arms were too long. The posture too stiff. I blinked. The mannequin's head had turned. I rewound the footage. The recording showed nothing moving. But live feed? Its head was now tilted toward the camera. It was looking at me. I ran to the corridor with my flashlight and radio. I had to see it with my own eyes. I had to prove I wasn't crazy. When I got there, the hallway was empty, but the smell of old perfume hung in the air, faint, flowery, sickly. As I turned back toward the security office, something shifted in the corner of my vision. The service elevator door creaked open behind me. It was pitch black inside. I stepped closer. Inside, in the glow of my flashlight, stood 4 mannequins, all of them headless, all of them arranged in a perfect circle, arms reaching out, not toward each other, but outward, like they were waiting, and on the floor between them, a name tag. Mine, Arman, overnight security. I stumbled back. My radio crackled. A voice came through, Ben's voice. "What are you doing down there, Arman? Thought I told you." But it wasn't Ben's tone. It was wrong. Slurred, gurgling, not to wake them up. The mannequins moved, not with jerks, not like props. They stepped forward together. One raised its hand, reaching for my chest. I dropped the radio and ran. Back to the office. Slammed the door. Locked it. Breathing heavy. Sweating cold. All cameras flickered. And on every screen, in every hallway, at every corner, stood a mannequin in white. All of them now had my face. The next day, I searched for answers. I stayed after my shift, well into daylight, for the first time, needing to prove to myself that the fear didn't live outside the dark. I went to the building archives, tucked away in a back hallway near the storage wing, and found a filing cabinet labeled Incident Reports, internal only. Inside, yellowing paper, torn envelopes, and silence. One file caught my eye. Employee termination. Elias Bork, janitor, 2006. There was no formal write-up, just a half-burned page from a security report. Subject found after hours in sublevel B. Uniform soaked. Identified only by name tag. Cause of death inconclusive. No wounds, no visible trauma. No cleanup requested. Body reported missing before removal. That same sublevel, the one we were told didn't exist. The basement, the door to sublevel B had no signage. No keycard slot. Just a heavy bolt and peeling paint behind the vending machines in the maintenance corridor. I thought about it all day. Wondered what was behind it. And that night, I decided to check. At 1:13 a.m., I left the office with bolt cutters and a flashlight. The mall was too quiet. Even the machines didn't hum. The lock snapped easily. The door creaked open like it hadn't moved in years. Stale air poured out, like the breath of something old. The staircase down was narrow, claustrophobic. The walls covered in dark smudges and old handprints. Halfway down, the motion sensor light above me died. I continued in total silence. Even my own steps didn't echo. The floor at the bottom was concrete, cracked and uneven. The basement was not empty. Stacks of broken mannequins lined the walls. Some missing limbs, others missing faces. The air was thicker down there, and the smell was unmistakable now. Mildew, blood, and scorched plastic. Then I heard it. A mop dragging. A slow swish against the wet concrete. I turned. Someone was standing in the dark hallway to my right, half in shadow, half in the spill of my flashlight. Tall, pale, wearing a janitor's jumpsuit that was so soaked it clung to his body. His head was tilted slightly, as though listening to something only he could hear. And then he grinned, a mouth far too wide, teeth far too many. He raised his mop slowly, dragging it behind him in a red arc as he stepped forward. "Gotta keep it clean," he muttered, in a voice that gurgled like water in a drain. I turned and ran back up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. I relocked the bolt with trembling hands. Back in the security office, camera 6 flickered. A figure now stood in front of the locked basement door, mop in hand, and on the floor beneath it, spelled in streaks of red water, "Arman, clock out." But I hadn't clocked in that night. No one ever told me how. I stopped checking the time, not because I didn't care, but because I always knew when it was 3:12 a.m. The air would shift. Lights would dim. Something in the circuitry groaned, like the building itself was trying to breathe. That hour brought them, the ones who walked. I wasn't alone in the mall anymore. And I don't just mean the ghosts. There was something worse. At first, I only saw them on the monitors. Shapes human in form but off. Limbs too long. Heads that twitched when turning. Blank faces. They wore mall uniforms, security, janitor, sales. All faded, all stained. They would appear just after 3:12. One in the food court, standing at the table where I once sat for lunch. Another in the elevator, facing the corner. A third dragging itself across the carousel in the kids' play zone, leaving a black, oily smear behind. I checked the security feeds frantically, jumping from camera to camera, but they were faster than the monitors could refresh. Every time I blinked, one moved closer to the office. Then the intercom buzzed again. "Arman, you're late. They're waiting." The voice wasn't female this time. It was my own. My voice, coming from the walls, mocking me. "You didn't clock out yesterday. That means you're still on shift. And they don't like late workers." The monitors all cut to black. And then, together, they lit up with a single, shared image. The toy store. Inside it, the mannequins had gathered in a circle. At the center, an empty chair. Waiting. The floor beneath my desk groaned. And that's when I heard them. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Dragging. One pair. Then another. And another. I locked the office door and backed away from the window. Something passed by, a shape, tall and twitching, pausing just long enough to press a hand against the glass. Not a hand, really. More like a bundle of fingers stitched together from others. Pressed flat, leaving behind a smear that smoked on contact. The lights in the room began to pulse, and the intercom turned on again. "This mall never closed, Arman. You just stopped checking the exits." The breaker failed. All the lights went out. My radio screeched. And in that instant of darkness, I felt breath on the back of my neck. I turned. Nothing there. But when the lights flickered back, the security office was not the same. It was older. Filthy. Cracked tile. Rusted monitors. A time before I was hired. On the wall, written in something brown and flaking. "They walk until someone replaces them." I didn't leave the office for the rest of the shift. When the lights flickered back to normal and the cameras returned, the halls were empty. Clean. Too clean. No figures. No smears. No signs of the nightmare that had passed. But it had happened. I knew it. They had walked the mall. And now they were waiting for me to become one of them. Around 4:30 a.m., Just before my shift was technically over, I noticed something new on my desk. A small, leather-bound notebook. I hadn't brought it. No one else was supposed to be there. The front was embossed with faded gold letters. Logbook, E. Bork, Night Clerk, 2005. Elias Bork, the janitor who'd never left. My hands trembled as I opened the book. Inside were dozens of entries, scattered thoughts, panicked handwriting, and beneath it all, a slow unraveling. The first few entries were simple. Mannequin in Hall 7 moved again. Heard someone humming on Channel 0. Saw a girl in the bridal dress again. But by page 19, the words became erratic. I think they know I'm reading their book. She offered me a cup. I didn't drink. She got angry. One line was written over and over. The ones that drink stay beautiful. And then, near the back, a final entry. Smudged. Faint. They gave me a shift that never ends. I clock in. I bleed. I clean. I forget my face. Soon, I'll wear someone else's. Under that last page, I found something wedged into the spine of the journal. A laminated ID badge. Elias Bork. Security photo. Janitor's uniform. Face pale and bloated. But the terrifying part wasn't the picture. It was the timestamp burned into the corner. Check Diane, March 13th, 2006, 11 p.m. No checkout recorded. Not ever. The logbook fell from my hands. I stumbled backward, just as every monitor turned on by itself. Each screen now showed the same hallway, from different angles. Camera 1, Camera 4, Camera 11, and down that hallway, from opposite ends, two shadows were walking toward each other. One of them wore a janitor's jumpsuit, carrying a mop. The other wore a security uniform. Mine. I looked at the monitor's timestamp. 3:12 a.m. Live. That's when I heard the sound behind me. The soft click of a time clock punching in. But I was alone in the room. Wasn't I? The time clock punched again at 3:12 a.m. Twice. Once for me, and once for something else. I stared at the machine on the wall as it buzzed softly, smoke curling from its seams. My security badge had never been near it. I hadn't even known it was connected. But there it was, freshly stamped paper dangling from the slot, fluttering like it had been punched by nothing. I pulled it out. There was no name, just a timestamp. Clock IN, 3:12 a.m. Employee blank. And below that, welcome back. My mouth went dry. I turned to the cameras, checking every hallway, every corner, trying to make sense of it. Camera 8, the central elevator shaft, was flashing. The elevator was moving. That wasn't possible. Power to the old elevators had been cut years ago. The system had been manually shut off to avoid accidents during overnight cleaning. And yet there it was, descending floor by floor, lit from inside, empty, until it stopped on level B. Basement. Then someone stepped in. At first, I thought it was a reflection, just a shimmer in the elevator's glass, maybe a trick of the screen. But then the figure lifted her head. A girl, small, pale, wearing a white dress soaked from the hem down in something dark. Her hair hung over her face like wet rope, unmoving even as the elevator began to rise again. Her hands were clasped in front of her, holding something wrapped in old paper. Camera 8 zoomed. She was holding a birthday cake. Melted, burned, the candles dripping into the frosting like bones. and written in icing across the top, barely legible, was a name. Arman. I couldn't breathe. The elevator doors opened at the second floor, just outside the security office. I didn't hear them open, but the camera feed was clear. She stepped out slowly, and the cake burst into flames. Without flinching, she dropped it on the tile. The fire didn't spread. It just burned in place, orange and violet, casting shadows across her face. For the first time, I saw her eyes. They weren't eyes at all. They were glass. Dead. Shiny. Hollow. She tilted her head at the camera and mouthed something I couldn't hear. Then she began to walk. Not toward the food court. Not toward the escalators. Toward me. The hallway camera feeds turned on one by one as she passed each zone. Camera 2. Sporting goods. Camera 6. Janitorial supply room. Camera 14. Customer service kiosk. Camera 3. 10 feet outside my door. She stopped at the office entrance. I could hear nothing. No footsteps, no breathing. But the doorknob turned once. Clicked. Locked. Then she knocked. 4 times. Each one slow. Heavy. I backed away. My flashlight died. The intercom hissed again. Come out, Arman. We saved you a slice. When I dared look back at the monitors, the hallway was empty. She was gone. But behind the security desk, on my chair, was the birthday cake, still burning, and inside the frosting was something pulsing, moving. I leaned closer. It was a human eye, glass on one side, organic on the other. Mine. I ran. Not out of the building. I didn't even try. I knew by now that leaving wasn't an option. Not while I was still on the clock. Not while she still walked the halls. Instead, I fled into the northern wing, the one under renovation. Stripped tile, plastic sheeting, half-torn signage. It smelled of concrete dust and something else, something sweet and rotten, like spoiled milk left in a sunlit room. My flashlight flickered to life for a moment, long enough to show me that someone, or something, had been through here recently. The walls were scratched. Floor tiles were cracked in wide arcs, like something had been dragged. A trail of small, uneven footprints led toward the old event atrium. That's where I heard the music. Faint, wavering, calliope music, like a broken merry-go-round coughing up one final tune. The party zone had been closed for years. I remembered reading about it. There was some incident involving missing kids and a failed ceiling collapse. The whole area was sealed off. But tonight the doors were open, and inside there was a party. Dozens of mannequins, all seated at small plastic tables. Party hats on their heads. Rotting cake on every plate, their plastic mouths stained with red icing and something blacker. Balloons floated above them, but the strings ended in nooses. At the far end of the atrium stood a banner. Happy last shift, Arman. In the middle of the room was a single chair, empty, facing the crowd. I backed away. A balloon popped. Then another. And one of the mannequins at the table turned its head. I heard it before I saw it. A sharp snap of artificial bone cracking under pressure. Then another turned. And another. Soon, the whole room of mannequins was facing me. Some grinning. Others weeping plastic tears. And in the center, seated now in the once empty chair, was her. The girl in the white dress. The birthday cake sat in her lap. The candles now formed a circle of flame around her. She raised a fork, took a bite, then choked. Black ooze spilled from her mouth. down her neck, onto the floor. It crawled like insects. Fast. Wrong. I ran. The mannequins rose in unison behind me. I didn't make it far. Just outside the party room, the mall hallway had changed. Where the toy store should have been was now a mirror. Tall. Antique. Framed in rusted silver. I saw myself in it, shaking, broken, lost. But my reflection smiled and whispered, without lips moving, "You're almost done. One more night, and you'll stay forever." The hallway behind me was gone. I was alone with the mirror, and me, smiling back. I smashed the mirror, or tried to. My fist connected with glass, but the surface didn't break. It rippled, like water. My hand sank and past the wrist before I could pull it back, and the reflection, the other me, grabbed it. Cold fingers, perfect grip, a smile that stretched too far across a familiar face. "One more shift," it whispered. "That's all it takes." I yanked my hand back, skin burning with frost. The mirror stilled again. My face was normal. My reflection did not smile. But I knew that wasn't me. Not anymore. I stumbled back into the hallway. The mannequins were gone. The cake was gone. The lights above flickered violently. One bulb exploded, then another, and the mall began to change. Not slowly, not subtly. The floors cracked open, revealing crawl spaces packed with bones. The escalator rails twisted into rib cages. Storefronts stretched into mouths. The tiled ceiling dripped with black tar and strands of hair. My radio buzzed. "Final call for employee Arman," it said. "Please report to Sub-Level B for permanent assignment." My feet moved before my brain caught up. Drawn. The hallway to the basement opened by itself, door wide. Lights glowing sickly yellow down the stairs. I descended, and as I did, I heard every name I had ever forgotten. Old friends, bullies, lovers, my mother's voice. All of them whispering in unison. "You stayed too long." The sub-basement was different now. It wasn't storage. It was a cathedral. Walls lined with shelves of teeth. Benches made of stacked file cabinets. And in the center, where the well should have been, was a clock-in terminal. Massive, mechanical, steaming. And around it the staff. All of them. Frozen mid-task. Janitors with broken spines and mops melted into their hands. Cashiers with their eyes sewn shut by receipts. Managers with glass shards where faces once were. All of them breathing in sync with the machinery. The punch clock glowed red. Employee name Arman. Status unrecorded. Duration exceeded. Action required bind. I turned to run, but the girl in the white dress was already at the top of the stairs. Her eyes gone now, black pits pouring smoke. She lifted one hand and pointed to the machine. "You're the last shift, Arman," she said. "Clock out, or become part of the mall." The machine opened, a mouth of metal and flame, and from within it, my own voice echoed. "I'm ready." But I wasn't. I screamed and ran into the mouth. I fell, not onto a floor, but through time, through the mall. Its history, its screams, its shifting halls. I saw the first grand opening, balloons, crowds, kids licking cones. I saw the first accident, a child swallowed by the escalator. I saw the janitor's body stitched back together by something that wore a smile like a suit. I saw every employee who never left, every final shift. and I saw myself walking the corridors, talking into a dead radio, sitting in a break room that hadn't existed in 30 years. When I landed, I was standing in the food court. Bright, clean, morning. Sunlight spilled through skylights. Shoppers strolled lazily. Music played softly. The scent of pretzels and fried chicken wafted through the air. A normal day. Had I imagined it all? Then I saw the poster, taped to the glass door of the security office. Welcome to Silverline Mall. Join our dedicated team. Flexible hours. Night shifts available. Current employee of the month, Arman. My picture. Smiling. Too wide. A customer walked by me and smiled. Thanks for keeping the place safe, man. I nodded slowly. My voice didn't come out. In the window of a store, I caught my reflection, wearing the uniform, but my eyes were made of glass. My shift never ended. It just rewrote the rules. I'm still here, walking the floors, smiling at guests. And when the lights flicker at 3:12 a.m., I take my place beside the mannequins and wait for you to apply. Because this mall always needs a closer. And someone always forgets to clock out.